Hey everyone, welcome to the Real World Productivity Growth Group live Q&A, and today is the 11th of October, and this is the 55th one. I actually missed the 1-year anniversary, but it's okay because I've had some weeks where I wasn't available, things didn't work out, so it's not truly a year, so we're just going to keep going. Real quick, if you're watching the replay, that's awesome. Thanks for watching. You can always leave a comment or a question. You can also come join us live in the group down below. You'll be able to see that and ask questions. But again, you can ask those at any time if you want. But if you're interested in productivity, processes, automation, any of that good stuff, come join us. It's a free group to join. And if you're watching this on YouTube and you just want to stay up to date, you can also hit the subscribe button down below and obviously see these along with things like app reviews, some more in-depth training and tutorials on stuff, again, about productivity, processes, automation, all that good stuff. So before we get into the questions, I obviously have somebody here with me. This is my wife, Jenny.
Hi.
And she's here to offer a little bit of a different maybe opinion or some thoughts on the questions we're going to go over today. Jenny is a biological physicist. And so that hopefully is going to offer a little bit of insights. And then her background, of course, is different than mine. And like anyone else, she's able to offer some different ideas on the things that we're going to talk about. So, yeah. All right, let's jump into it. First question was submitted earlier this week, and they're basically talking about, or the question started with, you know, they've got their planning done or identified, they've gotten that, the action list is done, they're able to prioritize, they're identifying the next smallest action they can take, but then that next step of actually moving into action, not happening. So how does one overcome that avoidance of taking action? And then they added the helpful thing here that even the strategy of knowing one's why, so knowing your goals, knowing what you're doing is not helping. So that's a really good question. So I'm going to take this from kind of a practical perspective and offer just a few tips that I think like are things either you can try. If you have tried them, then, you know, either think of different ways to implement these or perhaps, you know, try one out of the many that I'm going to recommend. The first one that immediately comes to mind is make sure that you're putting the important things first. I am certainly guilty of not doing this all the time. I think we all do this from time to time where we productively procrastinate and we think, oh, you know, like cleaning these Post-it notes off of my desk in front of me, that's what I need to be doing right now. It's like, no, it's not. Like I need to be working on my business, or I need to be writing an email. I need to be doing something else. So I think that then kind of sets up my next point that I thought about with this is try two different methods. Okay, and one of these is that first task done. So get that momentum going. Just assign yourself that small task and try that, and then you know you get that rolling and it kind of the snowball effect. You build the momentum. However, there's the opposite one that there's an entire book actually written with this title called Eat the Frog. And that's the idea of, you know what, just get your biggest, worst, however you want to think about it. Get that done first in your day or whenever your most productive moments are. And that once you have that done, everything else becomes easier. So I would say try one and then try the other and see what works best for you and then stick with that. So
I guess for me, I do 3 different things and it kind of depends on what it is I'm procrastinating on and, you know, the importance of it. The first thing that I try to do is I try to give accountability. So I'll tell Adam, you know, like I'm going to do the dishes today. And then he knows. And so I'm giving somebody else kind of my motivation. And so maybe he'll check in or maybe not. But then I just know. But
he'll know.
I just know that, you know, somebody else now knows. And sometimes that's enough to push me into doing things.
Cool.
The second thing that I do is I give myself a deadline. So I say I have to get something done by a specific time. And sometimes that'll help to like push me into things and doing things. And then the third thing that I do is I give myself a reward. So I tell myself if I do something, then I can, you know, so sometimes the reward is just leaving work. So I have to get this done before I leave work. And then the reward is both a deadline and it's, you know, it's something that I get back. And sometimes it's chocolate.
Sometimes. That's a good one too. I think that, you know, identifying yourself, which is good. I'll get to this in my last point, so I won't go too into depth on this, but if deadlines work for you, yeah, definitely use them. And different folks, this works differently for different people. So if you're one of those people where a little bit of pressure makes you do things better, then yeah, use that to your advantage. Set your own deadlines.
Yeah, but cool. I really like the just eat the frog. Like sometimes you just have to tell yourself, just do it. Yeah,
and I actually use both of those. But if you're at the point where you're just not getting things done, or you feel like you just can't ever take that first step, try both. Build the momentum, do the small tasks, work your way up through the day. Or I use both. Like I said, sometimes I know, what, this has to get done. I know it's going to be either a pain in the butt or it's just a big time sink, but it has to get done. Then tackle that, and then the rest of your day is easier. So, let's see. The other things I want to touch base on with this is again some more practical stuff. Time your work around when you work best. Okay, for most people, I think they generally are better or more productive in the morning, but that's not everybody. If you're more productive in the afternoon, right after lunch, good for you. You're one of a very small group of people. But then time your most important work there. If you have 2 productive times, maybe you work in the morning and evening you're just really on it, then that's where you do it. So make sure you're utilizing that to the most. And then lastly, I want to talk about this because I'm giving a talk next week actually to a group. And one of the things I'm going to mention to them, it's about actually automation and processes. But to make that really effective and to make yourself more productive, you need to have time to think about what it is you've been doing. And, I call it reflecting or reviewing. And it's not just, how do I feel? And, there is definitely some of that, but what's working and being honest with yourself and what isn't working. And if you have planned, you've got an action list, you prioritize, but you're just not doing anything, then I think you really need to spend some time figuring out why are you procrastinating. And, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist. There could be some very real reasons in that realm. If so, get that dealt with. But, maybe it's something, again, as simple as, I'm trying to do this at the wrong time of day. But just take 30 minutes and list out some ideas, write them down, and be honest with yourself. And I think that, doing this again is very helpful, but don't do it once. Do this once a week, once a month, whenever you can fit it in and make it regular, and you really start to see some benefits. So, cool. All right, great question. That was really good. That's definitely one you could go in depth on.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to switch it up a little bit. We've got a fun question I had, and I'm really curious to see Jenny's answer to this. But what's one thing that you always procrastinate on? Also, if you're watching this, whether it's a replay or live, just answer this. I'm really curious. So what's one thing you procrastinate on? Just leave a comment. I'm really curious. But I'll let you go first.
I kind of feel like you could answer it for me, though.
That's danger zone. I want to hear what you...
It's funny. So just as a little insight, Adam has this note right below it that says dishes and general cleaning.
That's for me, though. I've got my notes off to the side.
But I think that we're both we procrastinate on that. I mean, general cleaning could be laundry or, other things. But usually it's just chores that I don't enjoy doing. I usually put those off. But I guess there's a lot of things that I procrastinate on. That's why I have a system, because I do procrastinate on.
But if it's one thing that you had to would it be house chores?
Honestly, I think laundry. I'll go for as long as possible and then do 5 loads.
Oh my God.
If I have enough clothes, I'll just keep pushing it.
That is definitely not what I do, but that's because I have less clothes. So it's I feel the pain much sooner. This is interesting. So I put dishes and general cleaning, but it's productive procrastination. It's not like we never do dishes or cleaning. It's just one where I'll be either tired, or I want to take a break. And sometimes that works out for the best, but I'll be like, I need to go tidy up the kitchen instead of, finishing what I was working on. And that's how it works out. But I made a note too that reflection and review time has helped with this because we've looked into things like, well, what's a solution? You can delegate some of this work. You could automate it. You could stop doing it, which is not an option in this case. You got to clean. You need clean clothes. But, can you hire someone to clean your house? Is that an option? Do you have the discretionary spending available to do that? Can you speed it up? Can you delegate it if you have children or
a wife?
Which can't do that. So, we split the chores. We've tried house cleaning services. We've done this or that. And it's an ongoing process because we identified this is something we don't want to invest a lot of our time into. So what other resources do we have? Is it worth the money? Is there another way? Can we speed up the process? So this is ongoing for us. So
yeah, but I mean, I think it also applies to even work-related things where you're writing and stuff like that. Find ways to get over that procrastination, be it eating the frog or whatever. But identifying those and then attacking them, finding a solution, not just kind of ignoring procrastination. So I think that asking the question first and foremost was really, that's the first step, right?
definitely, yeah, a little bit of self-awareness of like, yes, I have something I can improve. So, okay, so this next and last question, unless something comes in live, which I'll keep an eye on, but this is a really big question. So, I'll try to keep this to 5 minutes. But what system do you use for getting things done? I'll give a quick overview on mine. It's my own mix, but it's not really a system. And this is semantics, but I choose the word framework. And this has become important to me after seeing, people, or there's ideas out there like, okay, you use this one tool, like you have to use Todoist and you have to do it this way. It's like, yeah, okay, that's great. That's somebody's like literal system, but I think that having a framework is much more important because it's flexible. What do you do when you travel? What do you do when you don't have your phone? What do you do in all these situations that happen in real life? So for me, it's my own framework, and it's the daily review is core to this. Okay, I do this whether I'm traveling, whether I'm on a plane, and I whatever happens, and it could even be in my head, although that maybe isn't quite as good. But just doing the daily review. What is it that's going on? Review my calendar, review the goals, review my 90-day goals. Actually, I've got it right in front of me. Open the calendar and scan it through. I personally, right now, I'm using Todoist. I scan, I batch, prioritize, delete as needed. And then I'll open my project management software and do the same thing. Scan, get stuff into Todoist and prioritize, and then hop into Best Self Journal and actually do the timing of the day along with the things, like what do I appreciate? What are my big goals, and what are my 3 to-dos? And so that is basically what helps get me done, or helps me get things done. And within that, there's a lot of systems, which I think I'll save for another time, because then that, there's like subsystems. Well, how do you do Todoist? How do you do your project management software? But yeah, what do you do for getting things done?
No. Adam is much more organized than I am, and he has a huge framework, which I'm honestly learning a lot from too. But I'd say that I'm on the side of a lot more things are in my head. I love Todoist. I use Todoist, and I've actually introduced it to my boss and some coworkers at work, and they haven't used it, but that's okay.
Give it time.
Giving it time. System for getting things done. Honestly, I love checking stuff off lists. I love lists. I have a whiteboard at work, and it's got a list of things that I need to do. There's no order to the actual list since it's whiteboard. But with Todoist, you can prioritize, and it's a lot more, organized, prioritized and whatnot. So my framework a lot is, it's been helter-skelter in the past, but I'm working on it. So it's actually a work in progress, but having lists is boring and awesome.
Oh, I think what you said earlier too makes, you said Adam's huge framework, and it's interesting because I think as you do this, it's important that you do what works for you. And so like my framework would work for anybody, shameless, pitch here. If you haven't grabbed my guidebook, do it. But it's the framework, and then you can make that as complex or as not as needed. And for Jenny, like she doesn't need project management software because she's not actively managing a team. She certainly works with people, but like throw that out. You don't need it, so don't use it. Todoist, I do need a to-do list. So does Jenny, so she uses it. And so it's adding or subtracting these tools or these bits and pieces from the overall framework. And I think that that's really important. So yeah.
Well, looking at the calendar every day is extremely useful. And I just kind of keep up a calendar on basically every laptop, desktop that I have, which I have several. So, but yeah, I think, it's hard for me to have a lot of the structure that Adam has because my day is not quite as structured as his. I work at a national facility, and so I have to do things differently almost every day, which makes it really tough to get some of this framework put together. But I have a Best Self Journal. Adam fills it out every day. I fill it out once every 3
I was
months.
about to say,
for,
I
like,
fill out
3
my
days.
best self journal. That sounded like Adam fills out my.
Oh, no. Adam has his own best self journal. And I have one that I fill out probably for like a week in a row for like once every 3 months.
That's
or
good.
So.
You start the practice and keep coming back. If which I think this is a good example. You try some of these things and some don't work. If you don't, take the best and leave the rest. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, don't. And I think over time, maybe it will work for you. But
I think so.
if it doesn't, that's fine. There's something else out there.
Yep. So.
Cool. Well, we're going to wrap it up. I am about to head out the door and go for a run, and Jenny's going to head into work. So thank you, everyone, for watching. And real quick, if you haven't yet and you're watching this on YouTube, you can subscribe by hitting the button below. Also in the description is a link to come join us in the Real World Productivity group on Facebook. It's free. You just got to answer some questions. Want to make sure you're actually want to be here and you're interested in processes and productivity and automation. And thanks to everybody in the group. Love the questions. Keep them coming. And I'll see you next week.